Welcome back to the channel and to another installment of Taoism Explained. Today we'll be diving into the 31st chapter by reading 3 translations, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. Without further ado, the first translation goes like this. Now arms, however beautiful, are instruments of evil omen, hateful, it may be said, to all creatures. Therefore, they who have the Tao do not like to employ them. The superior man ordinarily considers the left hand the most honorable place, but in time of war, the right hand. Those sharp weapons are instruments of evil omen, and not the instruments of the superior man. He uses them only on the compulsion of necessity. Calm and repose are what he prizes. Victory by force of arms is to him undesirable. To consider this desirable would be to delight in the slaughter of men, and he who delights in the slaughter of men cannot get his will in the kingdom. On occasions of festivity, to be on the left hand is the prized position. On occasions of mourning, the right hand. The second in command of the army has his place on the left. The general commanding in chief has his on the right. His place, that is assigned to him as in the rites of mourning. He who has killed multitudes of men should weep for them with the bitterest grief, and the victor in battle has his place rightly according to those rites. A second translation reads, Even victorious arms are unblessed among tools, and people had better shun them. Therefore he who has reason does not rely on them. The superior man, when residing at home, honors the left. When using arms, he honors the right. Arms are unblessed among tools, and not the superior man's tools. Only when it is unavoidable, he uses them. Peace and quietude he holdeth high. He conquers but rejoices not. Rejoicing at a conquest means to enjoy the slaughter of men. He who enjoys the slaughter of men will most assuredly not obtain his will in the empire. And our last translation. Even successful arms, among all implements, are unblessed. All men come to detest them. Therefore the one who follows Tao does not rely on them. Arms are of all tools unblessed. They are not the implements of a wise man. Only as a last resort does he use them. In propitious affairs the place of honor is the left, but in impropitious affairs we honor the right. Peace and quietude are esteemed by the wise man, and even when victorious he does not rejoice, because rejoicing over a victory is the same as rejoicing over the killing of men. If he rejoices over killing men, do you think he will ever really master the empire? The strong man, while at home, esteems the left as the place of honor, but when armed for war, it is as though he esteems the right hand, the place of less honor. Thus a funeral ceremony is so arranged. The place of a subordinate army officer is also on the left, and the place of his superior officer is on the right. The killing of men fills multitudes with sorrow. We lament with tears because of it, and rightly honor the victor as if he was attending a funeral ceremony. So we find ourselves talking about war in yet another chapter. I have been putting this one off for a few days because it's a little more weighty than usual. It's a bit strange to be on the subject as it's kind of close to home. Many people are beginning to feel strangely about the situation of the world in its current state. And I would like to think that Lao Tzu's teachings would apply to the mess the world finds itself in today. I will do my best to avoid going into specific examples of people celebrating or calling for weapons and war as it relates to any current political tensions, as this book was written long before the current era, and we would do well to avoid talking politics here. But at the same time, we're also trying to apply these chapters in our daily lives, so we'll see where I am led in my thought process. The chapter begins by saying that weapons aren't something to be celebrated, and that when people start celebrating weapons, it usually means they are expecting war, conflict, and violence. Weapons, no matter how beautiful they may be, are still instruments of war and should be regarded as such. I would probably even say, no matter how much of a technological marvel they may be, they are nothing but tools for war. We kind of have a knack for appreciating fine craftsmanship and the marvels of modern technology. We glorify battles of the past, turning events that ought to be thought of as funerals, as heroic triumphs and battles of good versus evil. We even tend to make wars exciting and think of peacetime as a separate thing in and of itself. Nothing more than sort of a boring stretch of time in between wars. Nothing of note ever happens during peacetime, right? History can't unfold without conflict, so we say. All of this sort of thinking is antithetical to our nature. We strive for peace, do we not? All of this is pointing towards a serious flaw in our basic attitudes. The absolute monstrosities of war are thought of from a zoomed out perspective rather than on a human level. One can hear about the viciousness of Dr. Mengele as a past historical event and not fully grasp the nature of the experimentation that was being conducted. And just as a funeral is a somber occasion where we mourn the loss of life, war also leads to the loss of life and the destruction of communities. And this is putting it lightly from a zoomed out perspective. For the actual meaning of the loss of life can be beyond description and beyond what we would even like to consider other human beings capable of. Therefore, we should approach war with the same respect and understanding that we have for the loss of life at the funeral of a loved one. And going just a little further, the celebration of victory as it relates to war implies that one enjoys the death of others. Enjoying the death of others is no different than enjoying the death of oneself. And Lao Tzu's attitude towards war could probably be described as one of deep concern and a call for peace. He seems to be emphasizing the seriousness of the consequences of conflict, and we ought to take this as the powerful reminder that it is, that we should do everything we can to avoid war and to extend peacetime as much as possible so that we may live in contentment and in accord with the natural way of things.